And this officially marks York's first win of the OUA season. The Gatorade tubs are out. They're giving people showers. It's their first win against the Blues since 2019.
Wade, I said it on the Thursday show. We are back talking about it here today as we recap the week that was the York Lions coming off a 19-17 victory over your Toronto Varsity Blues, the first win under head coach Dexter Janke. Wade, the York Lions. You said it was lunacy. I spoke the truth. What are we saying now?
Connor, you have no idea how many people I had texting me saying, Connor was right. You were wrong. Connor was right. And the whole weekend I had to just sit here and kind of take it. But Connor, okay, we can come out and say this now. Before we recorded, you sold me this hot take, and I said you are absolutely correct that York is going to win this game. Like, watching how the season had gone for both teams, it was the smart choice. It was rather close towards the end. Like, the touchdown, they missed the 2-point convert, and then they went for the onside. And when the onside went up, I went, oh God, this is gonna look good. And it went literally, like, my football's over on the other side of my room after my men's league game, but like, ball through hands off shoulder pad. So they had first hands on it. They had the first chance to actually recover the ball. They missed it twice. And with Henke as their kicker, Connor, they were probably like maybe 20 yards away from being able to walk off that game with a field goal.
Yeah, man.
Maybe 20. Like, I'm being generous with his range. Like, they could have been one field goal or one first down away from a walk-off field goal.
Oh, absolutely. This is the the saying of a game of inches personified here in this last second onside kick attempt. But like, talking about kickers making or breaking games, Tucker Almert in this one opens the game with a 22-yard field goal, hits back-to-back 44-yarders for York in this one. He was the output of offense, aside from an Avante McCoy 75-yard touchdown run. Like, shout out to Tucker Almert for putting up 9 points in this one, a crucial 9 points for York.
Yeah, and the key when we talked to Coach Janke in the preseason was, how do you get a guy like Avante McCoy to impact your game when, teams might be looking to take him out of the game? And if you look at Avante McCoy's receiving stats, 2 for 7, you're mission accomplished if you're U of T. You just took their best player on offense and you limited him to 2 catches, not even enough to make a first down. And then he pops off a 75-yard run. And you're going, what in the heck just happened? Connor, I think this game was more about U of T kind of struggling again in the run game. A fourth straight week for U of T now, where they have really just not been able to do anything on the ground. And when you have a young quarterback like Caleb O'Donoghue, you make him throw 40 times. It's not a winning recipe. And you can see this across any level of football that you want. Look at the Chicago Bears right now with Caleb Williams. They refuse to run the football. They are winless as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb O'Donoghue, first game, great run support in the Waterloo win. The following 4 games, it just hasn't been there as a committee or as a single back doing the deed. I mean, Kinsale Phillip has to join in the rushing attack on QB sneaks, but I understand that their offense has a lot of short passing games that they kind of use as an extension of running the football, but there's something to be said about keeping a defense honest and about pass rushers not being able to pin their ears back, get 3 yards up the field, get a hand up and make throwing lanes tough for you, and then just crashing the lane. I think that's going to be the biggest test with this U of T team as they get into these tighter games. And at 1-4, it looks bleak. They got the win over DA's former squad, but as you're building the program, a win over your rival like York is always one to keep in your back pocket.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And just quickly here on your point of ability to run the football and how big of a difference that makes. Like York went for 170 in this one, basically averaged 7.3 yards a carry. Toronto on the other side had more rushing attempts in this game, but only 2.5 yards per carry. But let's talk about some high flying offenses as we move into the marquee matchup recap of this episode. 417 total yards of offense for the Guelph Griffins, 385 total yards of offense for the Queens Gales. It came down to a 24-18 win for Queens at home over Guelph in what was a very exciting game. Started off with a Nathan Falcone 21-yard touchdown to start the
Yeah, he had a
scoring.
game.
And then Donovan Malloy quickly follows this up, not 3 minutes later, 4 minutes later, with a 99-yard touchdown run. He exploded off the line of scrimmage, was gone. Nobody could catch him. And this game was just a back and forth battle of blows. Queens did come out on top in this one, though.
Okay, 75 rushing yards is the number I want you to think about. And that is the number that Queens held the Guelph Griffins rushing attack to outside of Donovan Malloy's 99-yard fantastic touchdown run.
Yeah,
75 yards for all except one play of the game. Connor, I think that this Queens defense just played the game of their year. 3 interceptions on a boot, one rush that went for 99. Otherwise, they hold a three-headed monster and they end the Marshall McCray touchdown streak of games with a
yeah. That was
score,
a huge one, right?
but they hem this team in, make them
Mm,
play left-handed. Abood is throwing against a tight secondary
yeah,
that has a really good pass rush, a large pass rush. This Queens defense came to play, and I think this is kind of the game we've been waiting on them to have, right? This,
absolutely.
okay, teams have kind of ran the ball with some success on them. Keegan Hall obviously threw for a bucket full of yards. This was the game that was like, uh-oh, if this Queens defense is not ready to go, this could be an upset in the making. They came out and said, whoa, whoa, hold on. We have playmakers all over this defense. Sutherland,
Mhm.
Miller Melanson, Vanek, Jared Seaway, the front. Don't even get me started on the D line, right? Like we know all of the guys that are there. They came to play this Queens defense all game long. And on the other side, Cesare first game back from missing the Ottawa game or after missing the Ottawa game, Alex Freakin just says, I got it. 2 touchdowns, 288, a lot of it to Falcone. Uh, really good game by Queens. They needed that kind of showing, but it's going to be a long, long rest of the year for both these teams just based off of schedules.
I'm with you. Story in this one for me was defense all the way. Another thing that really jumped out to me in the box score with defense was the 5 sacks. They were all over the Guelph backfield, making Tristan Aboud uncomfortable. Hence, we saw the 3 interceptions as a result, and shutting down Marshall McCray in that electric backfield with the Guelph Griffins. I think you're right. Queens' defense came to play, and it resulted in a win for Queens. All right. Wade, you've got one more point before we move on to what was an absolute barn burner in the nation's capital.
Connor, if you have been listening to this for 2 weeks in a row, you have heard the name Ian St. Arnaud followed by missed field goal return for a touchdown. I have news to share with you. He did not have another missed field goal return. But at the same time, I believe he set like the Queen's school record for punt return yards in a season.
Yeah.
So obviously, Canadian football statistical categories, missed field goal is treated like you punted it to the other team. So all three of his touchdowns have counted towards that. Uh, Fantastic by Saint Arnaud, second year guy. I feel like we're going to be saying this name for the next couple of years and maybe into the offseason when we're talking about East West bowlers and CFL type of players. But hell of a start to his career.
No doubt, no doubt. He's a special player and certainly something, or certainly somebody that we are going to be keeping an eye on as we move on here. But Wade, I have a stat here for you. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, but it is a little bit crazy coming out of this Mac Carlson game as we move on here. The McMaster Marauders First off, I'll give everybody the score. Mac coming away with a 36-34 win in a very excited football game. We said this could be one of the games of the week. It delivered, but the McMaster Marauders had 442 yards of total offense, and Keegan Hall had 423 yards through
Hold up,
the air.
we gotta subtract the 7 rushing yards because he had a net loss, but
He had a
um
net loss. There was a net loss of 23, so that's why the McMaster Marauders average out to only around 33 rushing yards here on the day. But my word, what a ball game in Ottawa.
and Connor Keegan Hall, offensive player of the week. This one wasn't even
Absolutely.
close. I mean, 4 total touchdowns, 423, like you said, passing, 33 of 44. So 75% completions. Like he was on the money. And Jackson Taylor, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards. Everett Reed over 100. Uh, this game was well done by the McMaster offense, taking advantage of a younger Carleton secondary, right? We thought that Ife Onyeka was going to be kind of the game breaker. He was held to 1 tackle. And as a defense, they only really got 2 sacks, one from Yusuf and one from Brody Burke. Uh, so one a linebacker, the other one interior guy. That pressure that we thought might have happened with McMaster's offensive line, they solidified it. We got a ton of big time plays all over the place. Like Tristan Reddy had the 86-yard punt return, but other than
Again,
that, Connor, it
yeah.
felt like it was just McMaster, 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 and Carleton really just fighting to stay in it, despite having a really solid offensive day themselves.
It did, yeah. I think that rings true for me, except for the first quarter here. I mean, when I was watching the first quarter of this game, Mac scores one early. It's the Keegan Hall plunge to put them up 6-0 in that ball game, and then Carleton explodes out the gate. You have the Ethan Roca 4-yard touchdown run, then you get the Tristan Reddy 86-yard punt return for a touchdown, and at that point, I'm sitting there with Carleton up 14-6, heading into the second quarter of this ball game, going, man. Carlton looks good. They look explosive right now. They look like they're here to play football. But then this game starts unfolding, and Mac, they're calm, they're poised. They're like, okay, you put up 14, so what? They go out and hold Carlton to a field goal in the second quarter, put up 13 of their own, do the same thing again in the third, and then in the crunch in the fourth. I mean, their defense didn't do them huge favors giving up 14 there in the fourth. You don't want to see that too often from your defense. But they hold steady and they come away with a 36-34 win off the foot of Michael Horvat on a 31-yard field goal to put them up 36-23 at that point in the game. And it was kind of all she wrote after that one.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about this, when we said like this is the moment for Elijah Barnes and 2 interceptions, obviously not the day he wanted, but um, I don't know. I'm still very high on this Charlton Ravens team. Maybe it's
Oh, me
buying
too.
future stocks, but
They
I
ran
I
with Mac. They were at 436 yards total offense. They were able
and
to
we've
score.
talked
They were
about
right in this game.
yeah, and we've talked about how McMaster has had a really tough start of their schedule, that has kind of put them in this place being so far below 500, but they get a good win heading into their bye week next week. Uh, Really excited to see this McMaster team down the stretch. We're gonna get some really tough games from them, like Western, uh, and they're gonna have Waterloo and York. But I think that this team can take this rise and kind of go from here and maybe set themselves up for a playoff run under Coach Ptasic.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think often with those late game playoff pushes, it's just about teams getting hot at the right time. Shout out to my Detroit Tigers, but I certainly think that the McMaster Marauders have a little bit of that in them. And if they start getting hot at the right time, they start clicking at the right time. I think they can do some dangerous things in the playoffs, and this Carlton win is certainly, I think, going to help jumpstart a little bit of that. And now, Wade, we have 2 ball games left. We have the Battle
Okay,
of
hold on. You
Waterloo.
mentioned you mentioned your Detroit line, so let's go to the city
No,
that is
Detroit Tigers. My
geographically
Detroit Tigers. Still, yes.
let's go to the city that is geographically closest to those Detroit Tigers in Comerica Park. Windsor Lancers hosting the Ottawa GG's Connor. Uh, this game was really close in a way that we didn't expect it to be. Uh, Windsor's offense could not get going until late in the third quarter.
Hmm.
A collection of field goals, rouges, and safeties was all that this game saw for really 3 quarters, like I said. And if I'm the home fans, I'm kind of going, oh, yay, another rouge. Uh, but Giovanni Cunningham,
Yeah.
pass from Danny Skelton. Liam Talbot gets a second one to go. But Ottawa kind of turned it on in the fourth quarter and took the lead 18-14 here, heading into the last minute. It looked like it was Ottawa's game, but Windsor wins ugly yet again this year. And like you said before we even started, don't look now, but Windsor's 4-0. And I said, it's
Yeah.
not the prettiest 4-0. I mean, my stat for you was that they're the fifth worst team in the country
Yeah.
in terms of penalty yards per game. So, Connor, they are taking a ton of them. They've taken 39 penalties in 4 games. So, almost 10 a game for them. That's an insane number. Like I sit there and go, is that sustainable? Yes, the run game is fantastic, and the pass game still has a lot to be desired with 8 completions on the day. Uh, but Connor, that penalty number scares me. I think when you play the really good teams like Western and Laurier, and hell, I'll even say it, McMaster and Guelph, and if they play Queens again, you can't shoot yourselves in the foot that much and expect to come away victorious.
No, no. I mean, the saying is good teams win ugly, right? But there comes a point when it gets ugly and you're not going to be able to get yourself out of those situations. I do think I would like to see the penalty numbers come down like you're talking about, but don't look now. The Windsor Lancers are 4-0, but they do have a tough schedule coming up in the back end of the season here. They got to still play Guelph, Laurier, and the Western Mustangs. But I want to talk about the Ottawa GGs in this one a little bit because this is definitely a ball game that I thought they were in. This is a ball game that I thought they could win. And I think really for the first time this season, we saw a balanced attack with Charles Asselin. What is this? Josh Jansen throwing the ball 16 times for 204 yards, had the touchdown, had the interception. He was 16 of 19. Charles Asselin getting 15 carries for 83 yards, 5.5 yards per carry on the day. Had the touchdown on the ground, but man, I think what this one came down to for me was the fact that Ottawa just kind of sputtered through the first three quarters in
Half,
this
really?
one. Yeah, I mean, they
But
they
let's
they they
go
put up
ahead.
four they put up 4 points. They have 4 points heading into the final quarter of this ball game, and then they turn it on, and then they start scoring touchdowns. I think for Ottawa, yeah, you're starting to groove, you're starting to click, you're starting to figure things out, but like you got to figure it out in the red zone. You got to start scoring early in games. It can't be like, okay, we've got it figured out, but it's the fourth quarter and it's like kind of too late now.
Yeah, and the Ottawa GGs, they make their switch, Connor. It's 7-0. They make their switch to Jansen after it looked like it was a 2-and-out.
Hmm.
Uh it looked like it. Miracle gets subbed out for Jansen. And all of a sudden they start to put up points. And you start looking at that, and this is something we said early in the year that Jansen gave them the best chance to win football games. And it's nothing against the leadership of Miracle. It's nothing against the career that he's had or what he's had to overcome injury wise. But when you look at their offense, teams know when he's in the game that there is going to be a much larger percentage of play calls that are going to be runs or checkdowns to the running backs, quick game, like flat routes. And like,
Hmm.
they don't even want to say slant and outs because it feels like their offense is even tighter to the line of scrimmage than that when they're trying to throw the ball. Jansen comes in and you feel like there's optimism to stretch it more vertical. And the number one beneficiary of that is Charles Asselin. It looked on the depth charts, Connor, like he was not going to be playing. He was listed as third. Usually, when you're listed third on the 55, when you go down to the 48-man roster, usually it's like he might not play. He wasn't highlighted as a game time, but I kind of had a feeling that, they could be without Charles Asselin here. And that would have been ugly if it was Windsor against an Ottawa team with Miracle and no Asselin.
Hmm.
Charles plays Jansen gets subbed in, and all of a sudden Ottawa looks like a team that can contend with a top end team like Windsor.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what the shape of this Ottawa team, Ottawa offense more specifically looks like as we move forward. But Wade, we have one ball game left to get to in this one, and that is the Battle of Waterloo. And I don't know about you, but to me, this one sort of felt like watching the 100-meter dash in the Olympics a little bit because out of the blocks, it was 7-7. It's a tie ball game, and that's kind of like the first few meters of a 100-meter dash sprint when you're like, oh, these guys are all kind of shoulder to shoulder, neck and neck. This like might be a little bit of a tight race. And then the world class guys over the next few meters start to pull away and pull away and pull away. And to me, that was the Laurier Golden Hawks in this Battle of Waterloo, a 7-7 ball game, like I said, coming out of the first quarter. And then it was a 17-point second quarter for the Golden Hawks, a 15-point third quarter for the Golden Hawks. They got blanked in the fourth, but by that time, by that point in the game, it was a little bit too late as they managed to come away with a 39-23 win over the Waterloo Warriors, who found some consistency. They did score. It just wasn't enough to compete with Laurier in this one.
Yeah, and people are gonna look at this one and say, "Oh, Taylor Elgersma, 438, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions." Well, 2 of them were in the fourth quarter when the game was already really out of reach. So it's not like it's a big. They're probably just trying some stuff out and hey, let's really put it to these guys like they're crosstown rivals. Let's bury them. You get a bit anxious and make a throw maybe you wouldn't take if it was going the other way, but he had a rushing touchdown as well. Connor Raiden Thorne was a game time in this one. 3 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. EJ and Jace Atkinson just kind of held it down for these guys. It was a matter of our receivers are more talented than your defensive backs, and we're gonna attack you nonstop. And like you said, it was tight early, but when you give up 500 plus yards of total offense, it starts to wear on your defense. The snap count starts to wear on your team, no matter how rested you think you are going into the week. You hit that level of play time and you just start to deteriorate fast. With that being said, Waterloo ran the ball and had the majority of minutes with it in this one, but I just think they get worn down covering that much field with those receivers that much in a game.
Yeah, I mean, with Waterloo, or sorry, with Laurier, like you're talking about with the receiving core that they have, it's hard for anybody to cover that unit, yeah, in the OUA in the country. I'd go as far to argue. I mean, we saw the Western Mustangs struggle with it just a week ago, and we all know that they're a pretty talented football team over there in London, and Waterloo in this one, like you mentioned, they really leaned on the workhorse in Anthony Miller. And he's a pretty promising football player over in Waterloo for me, and I think I liked a lot of the stuff that I saw from Nick Orr. I think what this one came down to for me is just unfortunately Waterloo running into a Laurier football team that is just looking like
A
it might be
different
their
class, a
turn.
different class at
Yeah,
this point.
yeah.
For Laurie, before we go on, I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise that they had their most undisciplined, sloppy game and still were able to win 39-23. Like, Connor, you look at
Wait, what did I
three
say just
picks.
like 3 minutes ago about the Windsor Lancers? Good teams win ugly. This is
No,
a
but this
good
this
football
wasn't
team.
even this wasn't even winning ugly. They won
It's ugly for them.
comfortably, but 14 penalties, 2 fumbles lost, one of them, 3 picks from Taylor. Like,
Okay,
Connor,
now
it
now
felt
you
like
you walk into Coach Michael Folds' offense and read, or you walk into Coach Michael Folds' office and read off that exact stat sheet, and you tell me he doesn't look you in the face and go, "Yeah, that's kind of ugly." I know he would.
yeah, he would,
You
but
would
it
not
wasn't like
want
an
that,
ugly. Okay, but compare the ugly wins. Walk-off field goal, last
right?
minute
But if
touchdown
you're trying to
compared
be an
to
elite
20
football
point
program,
blowout over your rival where you just
yeah,
kind of punt the ball away in the fourth quarter and say, "No, we don't need more points." Like I get it. It's an ugly look of a win, but 39-23 is not a ugly grinded out escape with a win. You still
no,
dominated
no.
even though you turned the ball over 4 times and had 14 yards. They had more penalty yards, Connor, than they did rushing yards in the game. Like, I think if you're going to tell Coach Falls that's going to happen once in a year and you're still going to win by 20 points, he's going to take that bet every single time you offer it to him.
I would too. Yeah, I would too. If you're gonna tell me I'm
Uh,
gonna have more penalty yards and rushing yards and still somehow win a ball game, yeah, I'd be like, all right, I'll take it.
all right. With that being said, check out these games at OUA.tv if you want to catch up on them. Of course, we've got more games coming to you this week. We got a lot of big matchups. Connor, Queens Western is Western's homecoming this year. They said screw the FOCO thing. We're just gonna take it and have an actual homecoming game, and we're gonna make it against our biggest
What a
historic
ball
rival.
game. What a ball game. What a night that's gonna be. I'm certainly looking forward to that one. I don't know if this is a spoiler alert, but that is going to be our marquee matchup this week. That's nothing to be spoiled, I don't think.
We are also 2 weeks out from your Panda game.
Should be a fun one.
We've got a lot of upcoming OUA football to check out, so make sure to stay tuned to us, to OUA.ca, OUA.tv to catch all the games. We'll be back later this week to tee up that marquee matchup and the other games on the slate. But for now, take care and enjoy the week.